I like to almost be when I'm playing, like I'm a member of the audience as well. Like I'm listening just like they are in that sense. I'm not really projecting something, or it's like I feel like I want to experience it though at the same time that they're experiencing it, if that makes sense.
That's an interesting analysis. I've never heard that from a performer before, where you're not really projecting performing. You're in tune with the audience by being part of the audience.
They're part of the experience because of their energy. So you all, when it's really happening, it's almost like we're all inside of the music. Like we're just in this kind of bubble of that, the
Yeah.
thing. And that's when it's magical. That's when it's the best.
Well, from the moment Jason Vieaux was 4 years old, he was hooked on music. He was spinning his parents' vinyl and 45s. He was lost in the sounds of the 60s from his mother's collection and the cool jazz his father loved. And then came the gift that changed everything, a guitar. That early obsession grew into a lifelong journey, one that has taken him across concert halls, recording studios, and now to the heart of Las Vegas. Grammy-winning classical guitarist Jason Vieaux, I try to do that right, Jason Vieaux, performs during the UNLV Performing Arts Center's 49th season, which also celebrates the 20th season of guitar artistry. And that's going to be Wednesday, October 22nd at 7:30 in the intimate lobby of the Artemus W. Ham Concert Hall. And for tickets, go to pac.unlv.edu. And to learn more about Jason, go to Jason Vieaux, that's Vieaux.com, jasonvieaux.com. Follow him on Facebook, Instagram, and X. And Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ira. It's great to be talking with you.
Yeah, so I enjoyed the part about the fact that you grew up in a world of Beatles and I think House of the Rising Sun, the Animals too, and
A lot of soul music and R&B. Junior
yeah.
Walker, All Stars, and Wilson Pickett, Eddie Floyd, all that stuff.
So you don't look like the typical classical guitarist.
Oh, yes, man.
But yeah, and I also want to talk a little bit about your current album as well. But while we talk for the half hour, because you started at an early age, I think four. You started at four, getting interested in music,
Yeah.
and your parents brought home a guitar, but you didn't know the kind of guitar it was. But it was a classical guitar. Can you define for those listeners and viewers the difference between a classical guitar and, oh, I don't know, a Bo Diddley guitar?
Right. Well, I mean, obviously, a Bo Diddley guitar is an electric guitar, either hollow body or solid body. Like a solid body would be something like Eric Clapton plays, like a Fender Stratocaster. A classical guitar is a type of acoustic guitar. So an acoustic guitar is a very general term. It can be either be steel strings or nylon strings. So one of the more one of the more prominent images we see of like an acoustic guitar, what might be something that Joni Mitchell or Bob Dylan would play, like a steel string, Gibson Dreadnought, kind of big body, thin neck. The classical guitar's neck is a bit thicker because we're playing a lot of counterpoint and polyphony on it. So the neck's a touch wider, and the body's a touch smaller than, say, a typical steel string guitar. So actually, I can even show it right here if you like. I've been practicing
For those
morning
listening,
here in California.
yeah, for those listening, Jason
So
brought his guitar. Oh, that's beautiful. Very nice.
yeah, you
Very
see the dimensions of it when compared to like a steel string. And so the nylon strings, of course, also make it different. That's part of its sound. It's kind of like a softer, more bell-like sound. You can make the sound less soft with color by changing the position of your hand along the string. And classical guitarists, I mean, many of them tend to use a lot of color for that, as part of interpretation and the shaping of the music and such.
You seem to bridge both worlds, and what I mean by that is you are clearly great in classical guitar music and playing, and you've accomplished so much over the years and decades. And at the same time, because of your early interest in music and how you listen to rock and roll and jazz, you come across to me as just kind of a normal guy.
Well, I'm just a guy that didn't really want to. there was never really any goal with it when it came to making arrangements of jazz or improvising. I just naturally, from the time I picked up a guitar, I was kind of goofing around on it and just kind of, pulling things off the radio. By the time I was like 7 or 8, like Dust in the Wind by Kansas, I could play a lot of things on the radio just by ear. And I noticed that it would really impress, say, like my older cousins who were much older at the time, and they had all those records, and they, or Led Zeppelin and things like that, or, just any kind of things that were on the radio. I just start playing them. And so I didn't really want to limit myself to just being a classical player. I started really tinkering around with arrangements just for fun, in my teenage years, and I would transcribe like Steely Dan guitar solos and just things like that. And then I started getting really into jazz as a listener, probably around like college. And so all those things, along with the music theory knowledge I gained at Cleveland Institute of Music, which is, I've been teaching there now for 28 years, but that's my alma mater. When those things started to come together, I felt like it just was natural to just make arrangements of music by Pat Metheny or Miles Davis or just things. They were all just for my own enjoyment. There was never any goal or ambition to it at all. It was just fun. And I had lots of,
So when did that change for you where you said, hey, you know what? I'm going to actually get serious here and become professional?
well, that was kind of dropped in my lap in a way because I won probably arguably the most important classical guitar competition in the world when I was 19. I mean, the plan was to really get my technique and my mechanics, my right hand and such together, and then my teacher John Holmquist to say, well, maybe after your bachelor's degree, you could maybe try the GFA. But my mother had noticed that year was in New Orleans, and she always was like, oh, I've always wanted to go to New Orleans. And could you ask John if we could just go and then you could enter, but just for fun? And I ended up winning, just to try it. In other words, not for fun. I would never enter a competition unless I thought I actually had a chance of winning. And so I did, and I practiced very hard that year, to really get my group of pieces together. And I ended up winning it. And so the thing about the GFA, the Guitar Foundation of America International Competition, is you have a concert career ahead of you, whether you want one or not. The prize was like a 53 city tour of France and the United States. So that was, I had to take a year off of my bachelor's degree at school in order to do the tour. But it was during that tour that I knew that life was really for me. Like it just felt right to just be on the road. With a wife and kids at home now, it's a little harder now for me. But and coming out of the pandemic, I might have struggled with it a little bit. But I'm sort of, I feel very blessed and to be able to do this for a living. You sort of realize after the pandemic, like how that can be taken away from you. That's taken away from you, and when you get it back, that it really is a gift to be able to do it for a living. It's amazing.
You mentioned enjoying going on the road, and I'm thinking because I don't know, but do you travel with more than one guitar just as a backup situation?
No, I don't like to carry a lot of stuff in general. I would go everywhere with just a small backpack if I could, honestly. And my one guitar. I actually only have one performance ready guitar. I'm hoping to switch this one with a brand new one from the luthier that I'm playing this January. His name is Gernot Wagner, and I just think he's one of the best in the world. And then I have another one coming that's like kind of like a kick around guitar, like sort of a backup that might serve as a nice backup. But other than that, I'm not a big collector of guitars. I don't really have a lot of extra money with when you're raising kids. It's like buying a new guitar. It's like a massive
Yes.
thing. Classical guitars are very expensive. I mean, really,
Well, so are kids. So yes.
for kids. And so I'd rather I'd rather feed my kids than have another guitar.
Yeah, exactly. Just this will be an odd question, but I just thought of it. When you travel, because you only have to take the guitar, do you have to buy it if when you're flying? Do you have to buy a ticket for a separate chair for the guitar? No.
Um, What I started doing a long time ago when before United bought out Continental and the big three bought out the smaller fish. Um, I was a Continental Platinum member and I never really had much trouble getting it on the plane. When United bought Continental, I immediately became a 1K member because of how many miles I was traveling on it. So I devoted, that's what musicians tend to do. They tend to go loyal with one airline because they get more status, and then it's easier to get it's a little easier to get their instruments on. They kind of know who you are in that sense. So
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just thinking because I've talked to a lot of people over the years who travel and perform. They sometimes bring along a musical director, they'll bring along an agent or a producer or a crew or whatever it is. But you're able to just get on there with the guitar and go and
I mean, I don't have that kind of the resources to really support like somebody traveling on the road with me. I mean, I bring my wife and kids to more things if I could do that. But
right.
I mean, Ian and I have been together for 28 years. And so we have a very good communication system and that kind of thing. So no, I'm on my, I'm traveling by myself always, pretty much.
When you decide to perform in a venue, and you realize this was the life for you, was it because of not just the enjoyment of playing, but the reaction of the audience as
Yeah.
well, the live audience?
The reaction of the audience was probably that may have been the primary factor because it's not until when you have that much volume in one year, it's such a beautiful thing. I'm trying to get back to that. The next 5 years, I want to really reduce the amount of repertoire if I can. When you play one solo program 53 times like that in one in 9 months, and you see the reaction, you feel the reaction from people, you feel them listening, it's all, and in a lot of cases, like it feels like this air just gets sucked out of the room or something. It's then you're doing something really, you're really doing something, and that was even more than the fun, the fact that I enjoyed jumping on planes every other day to do that tour. I think that was definitely the primary thing. Like I think I'm probably supposed to be doing this. I'm thinking this in my 19-year-old brain. Like this is really what I mean, this is it. It's like this is what I probably should just stay with this. I had planned to get my master's degree, but after that, I just thought I gotta follow this thing,
Mhm.
this trajectory, and see if it sticks. Because if it sticks, you know, I was all in on just doing that.
When you first started to perform and tour, especially after you won the contest, were your parents able to see you perform in different venues?
Sure. Yeah, I remember they came to Detroit because I'm from Buffalo, and they would make a road trip if I played in Syracuse. There was a Syracuse date. There was another upstate New York thing. There was Detroit, and so they would drive to anything that was kind of close. Um, and we had a nifty little system where back in those days you went to the airport to buy the tickets. They took out like three credit cards, and they were at the bank, and then they would just they would put the paper tickets on the thing. They'd bundle them up and put rubber bands around them and have them in a package, and then there would be a target city where my mother would call me and like, okay, they're going to be in Minneapolis on they're supposed to arrive on Wednesday or whatever. So when you're in Minneapolis, don't forget to pick up your tickets. Tickets that would go around over the north and over the west, and then you'd have another sort of pickup city, and that it was really funny when you think about it now because
Yeah.
but you had to do it back then.
It was life before technology
Yeah, yeah.
in that sense. When you were performing, I want to go back to the performance. And again, you're going to be on October 22nd, you're going to be performing in the intimate lobby of the Artemus W Concert Hall. We'll give out the ticket information again in a little while. When you first started performing and you got the reaction from the audience, this is almost a fourfold question in this sense. There's a combination of technical and emotional. And so your audience can react to one or the other or both. And then you as a performer can exhibit one or the other or both as well.
Right.
So when you first started to perform, and even up till today, is it a mix? Is it a balance of the technical achievement as well as the emotional connection?
I'd say that initially I wanted to prove myself as a technician, I suppose, to the community, to the classical guitar community. That it wasn't maybe, I guess there was probably something, being young, there was a competitive edge in me that wanted to show that I wasn't a fluke, like I really could play and play difficult repertoire and such.
Or
But
you
my
could, or you could end up being playing a flute instead of being a flute.
no. So well, I mean, it's a very competitive field. I mean, there's just, and now it's more competitive than ever. It's like 10 times what it was when I was coming up. So, but again, my main focus was never really on the guitar community or competing with my colleagues in that sense. My main focus was hoping that actually the technique would disappear. That if someone was there at the concert, that they were just experiencing like communication of musical ideas, of emotion, like my personal sort of feeling or whatever would come through, and I never had to really work on that kind of stuff. I mean, like interpreting music came very naturally to me. Refining my technique, of course, was the work. So it was a bit more actual work, the hard work, and I think that's true for anyone that's playing at a high level of anything. But even at 19, I really was. My wish was that the audience would just sort of receive it, and I didn't care if someone was more of like a technocrat in that way as a guitar player and as a guitar enthusiast. If that's all they got out of it and that's what they wanted out of it, that's fine. It just, I almost like to be, I like to almost be, when I'm playing, like I'm a member of the audience as well. Like I'm listening just like they are in that sense. I'm not really projecting something, or it's like I feel like I want to experience it at the same time that they're experiencing it, if that makes sense.
That's an interesting analysis. I've never heard that from a performer before, where you're not really projecting performing. You're in tune with the audience by being part of the audience.
They're part of the experience because of their energy. So you all, when it's really happening, it's almost like we're all inside of the music. Like we're just in this kind of bubble of the thing. And that's when it's magical. That's when it's the best.
Well, we talked about technical and emotional. There's a third element you referenced it just a moment ago, and that's the repertoire. So you have to be, I assume, very careful on what you pick to perform or to play because you want it to match what you're trying to communicate.
I've definitely played. I'm a professional musician as well, so I've also played a lot of pieces that I didn't particularly care for. To be perfectly honest, and I got paid to do those.
Mhm.
So that's there's nothing wrong with being a
Oh, no,
professional.
no, not at all. But I meant in terms of your own performance when you go to perform.
Yeah, but when it comes to solo repertoire, I
Yeah,
mean, I
that's what I'm talking about. Right.
and I get tired of playing pieces, so then after a few seasons, so then I'll put some away, and then I'll bring some other things that I haven't played in a while, and then I get a lot of return engagements, and which is wonderful and a great blessing. But it makes your next season harder because you're trying to introduce other programs or other pieces or something that you like, a new box suite or something that I just learned, and then you've got a return, and then they want to hold that in the classical music. You're to play an entirely different program, when you get an immediate return, and so that was something I got trained on as a professional, starting about, I want to say like '06, '07, around there. Because that's when things started to really roll, and I was getting up to about 50 contracts a year.
Yeah.
So, but generally, I just, what's nice about it now is I just play what I like. I just play what I want to play, and I've never really had that much of a problem doing that anyway. People just, it seems to work. So,
Have you ever thought about incorporating other genres? I know this would be being a heretic in a way, but rather with the classical guitar, but playing as an example country music songs or
Yeah,
somewhat?
no, I mean, I don't think not in my view. I mean, I play my arrangement of Ellington in a sentimental mood, and it's like wicked bluesy. I mean, like notes and stuff like that, and and then I do What a Wonderful World, and it sounds kind of like country-ish and Americana, and a little soul in there, and yeah, I mean, I those are now I tend to save those as encores, or I'll put them at the end of the second half to kind of lighten up things at the end, you know. But I love playing Brazilian music and South American music, and I just think a program should just be kind of like I always thought of programs actually back to what our earlier reference, like side one and two of a LP.
Mhm.
I try to kind of arrange them that way. So I like having a little Bach in there. I like having traditional classical era, guitar composer music in there. I like having the Spanish repertoire in there, but I like a lot of other things too, and I try to get as much of that as I can in about one program.
Yeah, do you find that audiences are pretty flexible in the sense that they're expecting one thing from you because of your reputation? It's a classical guitar, so they're thinking one way, and all of a sudden you surprise them by playing something totally different, maybe as an encore, but still playing something totally different.
Yeah, but I never think about that or worry about that because it's never been a problem for me. And I mean, of course, there'll always be someone that's like, God, he's so all over the place. Why can't he just do that or whatever? I had people telling me early on when I was a teenager, well, on the GFA tour, wow, you're really good at that. Boy, I play the same program in every city, and one would be like, wow, you're really good at Brazilian music. You should at your niche. And then another one like, wow, you're really great great at Bach. You should really make that your thing. And it's like, why do I have to have a thing? Why do I have to have a niche? Why can't I just play what I want to? That's the way I thought of things. Like, why can't I have all of that? Why can't I have it all in one in programs?
You
So
can, as long as people come to see you. That's the important thing. And I was just thinking, your next album. Well, I want to talk about your current album, but your next album could be Jason Vieaux plays the Buck Owens songbook. What do you think?
well, so a couple of those actually could kind of fit in nicely with Buck Owens. Actually, it's all originals. We're going to call the album Gratitude. And Gratitude's the name of a piece I wrote for my mother back in 2019. And there's it's a lot of it has this kind of like, steel stringy Americana type of thing to it. And a couple of the things are decidedly non-classical, like in that sense. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what people, with the fan, I have a lot of fans and that kind of thing, and seeing what they think. They might be a head scratcher for some, but look, Images of Matheny in 2005, where I did a solo record entirely of Pat's, band stuff on the one guitar. That was a head scratcher to a lot of the classical guitar community. They thought, some of them thought I'd kind of like I was taking a big career risk or whatever, but it ended up being one of my more well-known and talked about records. So that gave me confidence. Like, yes, I mean, I can. Yeah, I'm not saying I could just do whatever I want. I'm not gonna necessarily do an album of like Taylor Swift or Lady Gaga covers or anything like. I mean, I don't do stuff just to do it to get a reaction. I just want to do things that I like, that I'm interested in. Yeah, the plan is that the next, with my producer, my record label, and this was supposed to be half my compositions and half arrangements. And actually, he told me, he said, for our next session, if you could write 15 more minutes of your own stuff, you could write 15 more minutes of original stuff. We have a whole original album. And he said, and then the next one can be all your arrangements, because he goes, I know you have more than an album of pop song, jazz, or whatever arrangements. So that may end up being the next one. I'm not quite sure. I mean, they want to do a Christmas album too. So
Sounds good. I always like Christmas albums.
yeah,
Yeah, why not?
any time. I mean, I've been doing Christmas arrangements since I was in college. I mean, why not, spruce them up, a couple new ones or whatever to make a record, and it's fun.
When you were growing up and learning to play and then winning the competition and going on tour, were there people you looked up to? I don't want to say idols per se, but perhaps not even mentors. And I know you're mentor to people, but just someone that you admired in that field?
Oh, yeah, yeah. They're still my idols and mentors. I mean, Manuel Barrueco, the Cuban classical guitarist and who teaches at Peabody. Um, and it's been a real honor and privilege to get to know him a few times over the years. And David Russell, the Scottish guitarist and Grammy winner, we've been friends for years, you know, and great colleagues. And I still just marvel. I mean, I hope that I can play even near the level that he's playing at 70. I think he's 72 now, and he's just playing amazingly well. And then of course, like the previous generations, like Julian Bream was a big inspiration to me when I was a little kid. Of course, Christopher Parkening, John Williams, the Australian guitarist, Andres Segovia, kind of like the godfather of like modern classical performance and guitar and such. Yeah, all those things, those people, those great artists, I still think about all the time, especially as a teacher, because as a teacher, you can't not think about them because that history is behind you, and you have to pass that knowledge on to the next generation.
Yeah, that seems to be an important part of this kind of music is really passing it on to another generation so they can appreciate it and understand it. Similar to the Great American Songbook, where that just lives on because of all of that.
Oh, and hopefully it will, because I mean yeah, I mean that era, that Tin Pan Alley era and such, I mean, it was just such an incredible art form, and those songs are enduring, and people all over the world, all corners of the world know a lot of those songs. So
Yeah, and it's also, I think, the fact that the combination of the lyrics and the music just work, and just it is what it is. Before I let you go, any particular compositions you're going to be performing when again it's at October 22nd at Artemus Ham Concert
I'm going
Hall?
to be playing two from the forthcoming album. I'm going to be playing Home, which I wrote during the pandemic. That's why it's called Home.
Stuck in the Home, I think would be a better title,
I
huh?
don't know how it's stuck at home, but yeah. And then one of the ones that I actually wrote to finish the record on the suggestion of my producer, uh, I think is one of the best things on the record, and it's called Tidal Pools. So I'll be playing both of those in the Las Vegas concert and see if they like it. You know, they've been getting great response, so I'm
Good,
looking forward to
good.
playing it for people in Las Vegas.
No, that's great. And thanks. A great way to leave it. My guest has been Grammy-winning classical guitarist Jason Vieaux. That's how it's pronounced. He'll be performing during the UNLV's Art Center's 49th season, and it's going to be Wednesday, October 22nd at 7:30 p.m. in the intimate lobby of the Artemus W. Ham Concert Hall. And for everything about Jason Vieaux, go to jasonvieaux.com and follow him on Facebook, Instagram, and X. And Jason, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much, Ira. It's been great talking with you. Thank you.
Here. See you next time.